Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Today I am reviewing By the God's Ears by Christopher Fly. This is book one of the Chanson de Guerre. There will be no spoilers in this video. Now, By the God's Ears, as I just said, is book one of the Chanson de Guerre, but it also works just fine as a standalone. In other words, there is a very satisfying conclusion to By the God's Ears. In terms of the tone of the story, it reads something like a folk tale, or perhaps more accurately, a translation of an older work. It has the feel of something late medieval, a bit like Mallory's Mort d'Arthur in a way. Or perhaps even more accurately, it is reminiscent of the 19th century fantasy, the prose romances of someone like William Morris, which has a certain charm of pretending to be medieval. And in fact, there is a little note, this is not a spoiler, I think, there is a little note at the end, much like Tolkien did in Lord of the Rings, where this is in fact purported to be a translation of a much older work. So that sort of feeds into that feel of this being very much like those 19th century imitations of medieval literature. And that is something that I personally enjoy a lot. And I think the slightly archaic prose in the tale also feeds into this feeling. And it is a very effective, the prose is very effective in creating another world, one that I felt immersed in. And I also liked how there were French words and phrases interspersed throughout. You do not need to know French to read this book, but it gives another sort of, I guess for an English speaker at least, another sort of flavor of this being another place, another time. And there's a bit of a Celtic vibe going on later in the book as well. One thing that I appreciate, the English professor in me appreciated, was that it is certainly one of the cleanest, not quite self-published, I know it's a hybrid published book, but along those lines, indie press book, it's one of the cleanest that I've read so far. So that was great. I tend to be a little bit, if you follow the channel, you know that I tend to be somewhat hard on the typos and that sort of thing, because I guess I'm trained, I suppose, to notice these things. But this was a fairly clean book, and I really did that helped it with the immersion as well. What else in here? Well, let's talk about the characters, because people love characters. And what I'd like to say about the characters here is we've got some really solid character work. They don't feel lifelike or three-dimensional, but they're not supposed to. Rather, they bear the imprint of the realm of story. And they are vivid. They are vivid characters that serve the purpose of this particular story and its flavor. They make choices that feel much like folktale logic. They don't follow the logic of modern people so much, but rather they follow a kind of folktale logic that works towards certain inevitable moments in the story. And there's no laugh out loud kind of humor in here, but there's plenty of whimsy, and I really enjoyed the whimsy of By the God's Ears, especially when it came to the more supernatural or divine elements, which are mysterious and fickle. And I don't want to say too much about the gods of the title, By the God's Ears, because if I say anything much, it will be spoilery. But the gods in this particular book are much like you see gods in most older mythologies. Mysterious and a bit mischievous as well. So that is something that I certainly enjoyed. By the God's Ears is also a tale that touches on certain important themes. I would count faith and belief among the chief of these themes. So Christopher Fly has his characters go through various crises, and the matter of faith comes into play, and belief quite a few times in the story, and it's approached from different perspectives, which is something that I found myself going along with and finding myself very interested in. Also, there is family and the weight of inheritance, the imprint that we get from those who raise us, and the cycles that we fall into as a result of those interactions and the way that we are raised. There's also loyalty and the quest to do right by those that we love. In other words, there are some very human themes in By the God's Ears, which I enjoyed very much. This is a very promising beginning to the Chanson de Guerre. As I said before, it could easily be read as a standalone. It is a nice change of pace, I would say, from most of the bigger epic fantasy that I tend to read. It's a fairly, just around 333 pages or so. It's actually a fairly quick read. And the prose, again, is just slightly archaic, but very much accessible, so it reads along very nicely. I actually hope to read more of the Chanson de Guerre eventually. I do not know, I'll have to ask Christopher Fly if I have the chance, how many books are going to be in the series or how many are even out at the moment. But I certainly did have a good time reading By the God's Ears. And so that's it from me for this review. Until next time.